You're listening to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City Soccer Club, brought to you by footballstadiumprints.com. Let's start the show.
And as I talked about just a couple minutes ago, as Joe Watt stands over this one, he appears to be the one taking the penalty here. This is a huge confidence booster if you're Duluth.
Worst case scenario for City right here.
And it stopped! Yes! And it stopped!
Totally redeems himself.
Matt Elder redeeming himself. Oliver with the right foot. The shot is goal!
Oliver!
Justin Oliver will break the scoreless tie. And it is 1-0 Minneapolis City. Is Hutton now on the offense with the left foot.
Goal!
And it is now 2-0 Minneapolis City.
Good finish.
Nick Hutton taking his quick victory lap.
Welcome to The People's Pitch, the official podcast of Minneapolis City SC. As always, I am your host, Nate, joined by my illustrious co-host, John Bisworm. I just want to take this opportunity to point out that last week I was not getting any sort of ectomies or oscopies or anything of that nature. I just couldn't record. John and I were just two trains passing in the night last week. My health is exceptional for now.
Well, I'm glad you're back, Nate. I'm glad you're back.
I do like that you were like, everything was wrong with me last week. I had a tonsillectomy to a vasectomy to a colonoscopy to just getting it at both ends.
Dude, soup to nuts, man.
Just flush me out.
And then we had Gus fill in for you for a little bit, and that
admirably. I think Gus has a future.
Yeah, he likes to talk. I can tell you that. So I wonder where he gets that from.
We've got a whole $80 in our Spotify account, John. So I think if Gus wants to do something for basically free,
yeah, I mean, hey,
here he goes. We got it.
He doesn't understand the value of $1 yet. So we probably get him pretty cheap.
Nice. Well,
but glad you're back.
Thanks. I'm glad you're back. I'm glad to be back. We had a big week last week in the land of the Crows. We saw our feathered friends rake in the points. I guess you could say that we were raking in the points across both the UPSL and the USL2. So we're going to talk about all of that tonight. We've got a recap of Minneapolis City versus Bavarians 7 years later. What changes?
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the Futures versus St. Croix recap and a Futures versus Blackhawks recap. And we'll briefly look ahead to what's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's talk about Milwaukee.
All right. So
you covered it.
You covered it alone, but that road trip to Rochester saw us earn our first point of the season. And I think the feeling, John, from us is that, at least from you and I in the booth before the game, is like, here we go. This is that was kind of a lost opportunity to snag a full three against an expansion team. But it was at least a point, right? It was a good start. Teams coming together. It was on the road. The point is good.
Mm-hmm.
And we got that chance again to get some points last Friday when we welcomed the Bavarians back to Minneapolis. And this time they capitalized.
Yeah, I mean, I covered it while you were out. And, this one was a couple of different things. One, it was the Bismarck Derby, that we were playing against my old club, our frenemies across the border. But the other thing was it was the bottom two teams in the league and two teams of quality that were in, outside of the RKC game, which you could even say we were in for portions of that, even though we talked about how good they were. So we were coming off of, an opportunity then to rebound against Rochester. We did to some degree. And then the Bavarians, we mentioned it on the game broadcast, Nordo and I did, that both of these two teams are not used to losing. And now you're pitting them against each other, and it's going to be a good game. And I think that's what we got. I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got a good game out of it.
Yeah, I would say we did. And, and the good news is it didn't take a huge overhaul of the roster, right? It's like, like you could tell that Coach Carl Craig building on the tools that he has, just giving the guys the chance to be able to gel, to be able to learn about each other. And the results will come, as he has said, and they came.
Well, and I mean, if you listen to his presser afterwards that was put out on social this week, which I really love that we're doing that. Excuse me again. I apologize in advance. This is
The smoke. It's the fires.
This is the allergy episode I have every year where I cough through half of it.
Fires are getting you.
But he said that a lot of these players, what he said, something like football in the United States is different. Like we're playing professional football here, where in these college atmospheres, these guys will run their balls off for 30 minutes and then get a sub and then come back on. And he that's not how he plays. He's teaching him a different way to play. And that would also explain why he's looking for them to figure things out on the field, because he wants them to take some initiative on reading the game and being the smart players that they are, to try to problem solve on their own versus having to kind of joystick them into wherever they go. And I think it's a really beneficial thing for these guys to learn, and something that, when he talked about, like, his goal is to make sure that they're better when they go off to the next thing again. And that's a very valuable lesson. But as far as the roster goes, like you said, relatively unchanged from the Rochester match. On the team sheet that we got, Oscar Herrera was slotted in to be the starting goalkeeper. But Kalen Maticastillo was the one who walked out of the tunnel. Have not got any word on why that was. We know that Kalen actually stepped in Rochester to get his first start because Oscar lost the contact in warmups. So you hope it didn't happen again, and we have shades of trying to rip the nose ring out of Abdallah Ba in the NPSL playoffs. Like, bring a backup fucking pair of contacts, bro. But I don't know. I didn't have a chance to talk to any of the staff, but I'll try to get some word on that, possibly for next week's show, or we don't really care because Caitlin stepped in, and we'll talk about how he did. But Caitlin anchored the back in net, and then the defense was relatively unchanged with Carson Pena, Guerci, Garcia, and Wes Lawrence. Jamison Charles stepped in at the defensive center midfield spot. And then the remainder of the front, Lopez, Contreras, Bechtel, Goldman, and Morgan, all unchanged. And then from a bench perspective, didn't see a lot of change over here except for two names that I'll call out. You had Oscar Herrera, who we mentioned. We had Puig, Damian Humphrey, Dennis Mensa, Aiden O'Driscoll, who have been in the team sheet pretty much all season. And then you had the return of the man, the myth, the legend, Zach Susi, who obviously didn't feature in the game, but was off the bench or on the bench. And then Curtis Wagner making his first appearance with the club. So again, like, not a lot of things changed, but there were some significant changes, and we'll talk about how those kind of played out. If you're talking about how the first half went, though, Nate, I thought it was exactly what we were going to get. And some of my friends in Milwaukee will disagree with what I'm going to say here, but the Bavarians have had a playing style since like the 60s, and they perfected it. And it's almost like the old Barcelona squads that we're either going to beat you 5-0 or 3-1, or we're going to lose. But we're not going to change what we do because this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. And it's like we're going to go man on man, mano a mano. And if you on a given day, it's your day, not ours. Hats off to you. We're on to the next thing, on to the next victory. But 3 games in, I mentioned this to some of our friends over there. The USL2 is a different animal, man. We kicked out 5 professionals off our team last year. We had the worst record we've ever had entering into the USL2. So I was like, I understand where you guys are at. We've been there. Don't raise the alarm bells, because I know they have quality, and they did have quality. I thought they came out very fast, moved the ball well. City was kind of on the back foot from a possession perspective, but then we started to open up and started to find our spots of the game, and really creating the majority of the chances in the first half. I think that Maticastillo had to make one save that I'll equate that save that he had off of a really nice shot from their number 10 Castro to looking directly into the sun.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more of a routine save, but he had to fix something, and he did. But then Eli Goldman is in and tries to chip the keeper, hits every part of the goal except for the back of the net. We're thinking, like, why the hell us? What? And then I showed you, I got a text from Soccer Buddha, Jeremy Uskovic, and he was like, I think you guys need to like sacrifice a chicken or something because you need to get that luck back.
Can a Bethel coach say that?
Yeah, I know. You didn't say sacrifice a person,
Oh,
so
okay.
maybe it's okay.
Sounds.
Yeah, I mean, sacrificing in general, you don't want to do it, but
Yeah.
hey, tough times call for tough measures. So, I mean, it was a back and forth first half, but then you see Eric Contreras rattle the bar in his own right. You saw there was a third opportunity. I can't remember who took it, that required a really good save from the Bavarian goalkeeper John. But what I was seeing out of him and leading up into the game's first goal was that guy loved to live off of his line.
Yeah.
And even into the second half, he was just like, he constantly 10 to 30 yards off of his line, and he already almost got chipped twice, and he just kept doing it. And then in the 41st minute, we saw the collegiate connection of Hakeem Morgan and Shea Bechtel finally connect in where what we saw coming. A lot of what Hakeem's been doing lately is coming back in for support play and drawing that central defender.
I've noticed that.
But here's the thing: he's big enough to hold up, so it works. We haven't had that target striker in a while that can just hold the ball up.
Mm-hmm.
So he dropped back into the midfield and then does a quick turn, and I don't think he even really looked up. The video kind of indicates that he did give a little bit of a look, but Shea Bechtel was making that run before Hakeem even turned because he knew it was coming, and he hits that slicing ball, catches John, the goalkeeper for the Bavarians, out in no man's land and nods in the first goal. And then the 41st minute, we're thinking again, Nate, like, all right, we're going into half with a lead.
Yeah.
But there's still like 4 minutes plus stoppage left. Like, how can we enter that 6 minutes of stupid that we run into? Are we going to run into it?
Yeah, there was a little bit of nail biting then, even at the end of the first half, just to think like, oh man, we cannot.
Castillo made a great save to keep us 1-0.
Yeah, and I think the citizens got it right when they gave him player of the game. I thought we talked about it a little bit. Like, he has developed greatly. I know he had that one amazing game last year against Duluth.
So might get another shot this year.
Yep, and we talked about him when he was announced, that it's like after that the season was kind of up and down for Kalen, and that makes sense. He's a young kid, playing in probably 3 leagues across the entire season. So there's a lot,
varying degree of shot difficulty.
Exactly, with very different talent at the back line in each of the games. So it was just a matter of like, man, this kid's got something. Let's hope that we can bring him back. And he seems to have developed really well over the last year at school. And he goes to a small school in Pennsylvania or something like that, Ohio. And he just seems to have done really well for himself, whether that means he got himself an older mentor or whatever. But he had some wily plays. There were a few times where he quickly on a couple opportunities where the Bavarians had a quick corner, maybe he just kind of ran over to the ball and kicked it as quickly as he could behind the net, so that they had to walk back over, get the ball from the ball kid, like waste some time. He gave his team a chance to get back. Like, he's just playing like an older player, playing like a veteran. And it's great to see him out there.
He was there all last summer. So, I mean, it makes total sense. It makes a lot of sense.
John, after like a first half that I think the city spent knocking on the door and finally get that goal, we came out of the locker room with like a change that I thought signified that we were going to spend 45 minutes parking the bus.
Yeah, so did I.
Carl Craig took Jameson Charles off, which I assumed was a minutes thing.
He just got back in.
Yeah. Plays for a pretty big D1 program. Like, he's probably got some limits. But they replaced him with Curtis Wagner, and Curtis Wagner isn't a guy that we had seen yet. So Wagner, Gierchi slides up to the 6, and Wagner takes over his center back role. And, I thought, like you said, we rattled the crossbar twice. We looked really threatening a couple other times. I thought we had more goals in us, and this looked distressingly defensive for a 46-minute sub, didn't it?
It did. However, what we find out is that Griffin Gierchi plays the 6 in college, and we all know Carl likes height, and that's a very big body to put in the middle of the field. from a defensive midfield perspective. And then we saw him he was actually getting the ability to go forward. And I was like, okay, Guerci, I see what you're doing here, bro. Like, all right. But for me, that change was the Curtis Wagner show.
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
I think now, whether that's something we look at for the game coming up on Saturday, I think your starting center backs are Jonah Garcia and Curtis Wagner. Like
100%.
He came in, big guy, quick for his size, and won everything in the air. Massive challenge, went into every challenge with every ounce of the poundage that he's got. And a lot of the front three for the Bavarians were not interested in what he was coming in with. So he won a lot of balls, and he even had like an amazing run in the second half where he excuse me, he got so high up the field he got a nosebleed. And it was like kind of kill out time, and he just tried to like kick it to the corner and just like scooped it over to the defender and like kind of surprised himself at what he did. And then if you watch the tape, he just put his head down and sprinted back because he's like, I think I might have made a mistake. But I think the positives out of that one were that change was you're seeing maybe something that Carl has wanted to do, but with the lack of depth with guys coming in, didn't have the chance. And I think it was a great substitution. But at that given moment, I think we did start to go in. I wouldn't say at that exact moment, but shortly after that change, Bavarians had more of the ball and we were on our heels. But we were packed in defensively. And then there were a few more substitutions that came that helped us further solidify the defense. I thought bringing in Puig to have a little more energy. He was kind of the outlet for our offensive attack at that point because he had the energy coming through the center midfield. But it was shut up shop time, and then there we go.
Yeah, and there, you're right. There we go. And I think that, like you said, as the half played out, it really did open my eyes to this different possibility for the City squad. I think Jonah has been phenomenal this year, and if Curtis Wagner can build a connection with him, I think Guerci's combination of strong defensive play. Carl Craig lauded his long legs as something that he was very happy with, which I thought was funny.
He's got a type.
Yep, he's got a type, right? But his combination of defense and that line breaking pass can really add a new dimension to the team. I think getting balls forward from a new source is something that personally I think is really, really important.
Well, and think about it.
For this team,
think about it this way. If say the lineup comes out for Saturday and Griffin's starting over Jameson, if you're a number 10 or a number 8 on the team you're facing, and you've played 50 to 60 minutes against a guy who's big, long, physical, and then you put in an energy guy like Jameson Charles when they're tired, like that's a game-changing substitution in my opinion.
Yeah.
As opposed to Jameson blowing his tank out in 45 minutes because he hasn't played a lot of minutes in a while. And Griffin has. So like I think there's something brewing there in the middle, and I like it.
I like it. I hope so. I like it too. To me, consistent passing into dangerous areas is something that we haven't seen. I think we're relying heavily on the diagonal ball. You saw it with the Morgan Bechtel attack. You see it. That's how Eli gets dangerous. The diagonal ball. Goldman is able to just use his, I'll say, pro level skills to get behind the defender and beat the center back, and he's usually in, right? But like if you can shut that down, what do we have? I think Lopez and Contreras have struggled to provide something from the midfield position as far as the offense goes. So I would like to see a midfield just for a game or two. Let's see Guerci, let's see Charles, let's see Clemente Arcuch Puig, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
When Puig comes in at the 10, again, the game changes. It's totally different. His energy level is different. He's pressing, and he's looking to play people on. It's less about the dribble show and more about how do I play someone in to be dangerous. So
he's very much like Sam Ruiz Plaza. no pun intended on the fact they both have a hyphen. They both want to progress the ball forward whenever they get it. Like that's their first option is to look forward.
Mm-hmm.
And what we've seen out of Contreras and Lopez is a lot of side to side, a lot of backwards, and the final ball hasn't really been there. But what further supports your argument here, Nate, is Puig, Bechtel, and Morgan all play college together.
Yeah.
Like, let's see that trident maybe get some more minutes together when they're
trident.
fresh.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you like that Morgan to Bechtel connection, toss in a third variable, and you could make some magic.
Yep, absolutely. So as far as what we have coming at us this week, City has a chance to build on this return fixture against another beatable team, in our opinion, in Rochester. And this is the first time we're getting to see a team for the second time. So it'll be interesting to see how Carl and staff maybe have more chance to game plan against what we assume won't be a volume of relative changes for Rochester. You'd have to believe their roster is pretty set, where ours is a little more fluid,
mm-hmm.
a little larger. So there's a potential now where instead of just trying to formulate your plan, we can maybe look at formulating a plan to beat someone, which is what I get excited about for the second half of any of these seasons that we play in any of these leagues, because you're getting to see teams for the second time. So maybe we'll see that. Who knows?
Oh, hopefully. I like that. I like that idea. I was watching the game from the great, the great big north. I think you were having a couple of beers on your patio.
Yeah, I probably had maybe 15 High Life while I was watching that game. So I remember some of it. So if you have questions on it, I'll do my best.
What did we see, John, in the first game from Rochester that we maybe could adjust to, or that should be easy for us to avoid this time?
Well, I think it's that what we saw in that Rochester game was the solidification of our defense. That was what we talked about. Like, we didn't get hit on counters in volume like we were in the previous games. But what we didn't see is any connection to our midfield, because they pressed high enough, but we were able to break it down through the long ball, and we were more apt to break it down through the long ball than finding our midfield. So from that game, what I see is that maybe it's another week of Jameson, maybe it's Griffin, whoever it is, the 6 and the 8. I don't think that we're going to see any changes from the Lopez Contreras duo. Whoever it is in that middle has got to demand the ball, and we have to try to find the small pockets of space through the press versus trying to go over the press, because when we did that against the Bavarians, who were a very astute, organized team, we saw a benefit from it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't see from Rochester was a compact team that defends and attacks together. It was very disconnected and disjointed, and we just didn't do our best to break it down and capitalize off of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that even just in the lead up, we saw that Rochester team did not seem super threatening. It was, a couple loose balls in the box against the Bavarians that got them their goals.
And it was very passive possession without danger, in my opinion. So, like, could we maybe amp up our defensive pressure and try to create turnovers higher up the field? Probably. I think we were worried more about not getting beat on the counter in that game. So potentially, maybe that's what they're thinking we're going to do, is sit back, and maybe it's an opportunity for us to get aggressive and hit them first.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, you're hitting on my next question, is what can the Crows do to improve over the last game? Because it was it was decent 1-1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as we've seen, we've got the potential for offense, whether it's RKC, whether it's close shaves against the Bavarians. Like, we should be scoring more in this league. How do we do that?
I think for me, if our strength in attacking is coming from the outside in Bechtel and Goldman, which I think is a very great option to try to explore that.
Yeah.
I think what we have, and that comes at the disposal of Morgan being less involved because he's typically drawing players out, like I mentioned. So what we need from our center midfield and what we see from Puig is the ability to come in on those trailing runs. Because right now it's either Bechtel or Goldman goes solo and tries to score from an impossible angle, or we see Morgan trying to play back to goal, turn to score. What we're not seeing, and we saw it a little bit in that run up against the Bavarians where Contreras rattled the crossbar. That trailing space when we get those guys end line is on because everyone's focusing on the ball. So I
especially when it's Eli Goldman and the goals he's scored.
Right. They're clamping things down at the end line, which typically draws defenders closer to goal, which means we need to support in more with our center midfield trailing in, and they got to get there. And I think if we can do that, then these 1-2 goals a game goes up to 3 and 4 because then you can't shut down the end line activity of your two danger men. Mm-hmm. You also can have your center midfielder supporting in, and then Morgan, who started play usually, coming in even behind them or with them, and you're starting to get numbers around the penalty spot, shots from distance. Then you're starting to get you're incorporating more chances than you were.
Yeah. Well, game time is Saturday, 6:30 p.m. at the Nelly. Let's see if we make these adjustments. Let's see if we can assert ourselves in this league in the USL2 and start climbing the ranks because we've got 4 points on the season, which is, I mean, at this point, that's what we had thanks to the last game of last season. So there's definitely already been an improvement. Let's just keep going up.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. On Sunday, John, the Baby Crows were looking to avenge their USL2 counterparts in a battle for the top of the UPSL Midwest West table. My bad. As we welcomed the St. Croix Legends 2 team to the friendly confines of the Nelly. We've kind of established this. There's been a pretty solid group of guys that have been lining up for that UPSL squad. Alvaro Arce, Aiden Lee, Camel 2, Carlos Robles was there, Carter Hermanson, not Noah, Colin Byrne, Daniel Linder, Johnny Bayer, Jordan Ross, Joseph Swallen, Logan Allers, Mason Gilliand, Micah Miller. Oh, Noah Hermanson was there. Mutu, that's a name I haven't heard in a while.
Yeah, Mutu watched.
Yep, Nick Kent. Always good to see him. Our guy Rigo Ariano, Tomas Mena, Tyler Beaupre, and Zach Susi. So Zach had a little bit of a warm up on Saturday. Ends up getting some play time on Sunday with the Futures instead. So far, John, this season, the Futures have kind of taken their time to get rolling, and this game was no different, was it?
No, it was not. I was on hand, so I do remember this one. So unlike the Rochester game when I was living the high life, I do remember this one. Here's what happened. And I have a question for you. What's just under a legend? Would that be a liege? I don't know. You're more of the guy who lives in the Dungeons and Dragons world.
Less than a legend?
Yeah. Would that be a liege? I don't know. Like what?
No, that's like
come up with a nickname for them.
The smaller legends. Okay, like a myth.
Yeah. Something. I don't know. We'll noodle on that.
I'll stick with that. That's good. The myth. So here's what happened in this game, Nate. Yes, it was a slow start for City, and it was a complete punch in the face. Table topping legends or myths or whatever you want to call them, excuse me, came in ready to play. However, when you look across the field, there was a lot of older players out there. It wasn't what you would think of from a reserve squad. You saw former City names like Stu Sane. You saw Jack Berry. Yeah.
You saw Jack Berry. You started to see some other players that, in my opinion, are potential first team members for the Legends. But they came in with firepower, and they came in hot. And in the blink of an eye, the Crows are down 2-0, and they were down 2-0. Almost the exact same way that the first team matchup went. It was direct long balls to active forwards who were putting us under attack, but it wasn't in volume. I think that we probably had in the first half maybe 7 or 8 opportunities, couple half chances, couple solid chances that should have been put away, and they had maybe 3, and they scored on 2 of them. So you thought in this half going into the second half down 2-0, it really was a matter of time until we got one. But they came out hot, and they were pressing high and going into challenges, bullying around maybe some smaller, younger talent. But that's not sustainable. And in the second half is where I think all the changes came. So I'll stop there before we go into the second half if you want to talk about anything.
Yeah, for me, John, I think that we last year treated this league similarly to how the future or the myths are right now, right? It's like, how do we keep our bench warm? How do we keep guys active, right? If we're not going to be starting them in the USL too. And I think we've kind of learned, Jeremiah has sort of learned that lesson. It feels like Carl Craig is also not buying into this idea of just using the UPSL team as like a dispensary for players when people get injured. There's a reason for people to be on this team. And as you'll see in the second half, it's when you run out of gas, when those like top tier players stop being able to play, or like, the fitness isn't there for them, there's really nobody off the bench to take their spot. Right. So Crows go down 0-2 in the locker room. What adjustments were made?
Well, here's where I think, and I'm just going to flat out say it. Jeremiah Johnson, the coaching staff, completely outcoached the Legends, the Myths, the Mystics, whatever they are, completely outcoached them, because a tired team that was up 2-0, putting on pressure and constantly going forward, and then having to track back with quick counterattacks from City. They went into the half, and I think that they thought that they could just come out and walk over the Futures and just figure it out in the second half and hopefully be up by a bunch of goals, which they were. But what they forgot about was the fact that any adjustments made for the Crows was essentially bringing on players who probably should be starting. So you saw and then you saw a tactical change at the absolute right moment for Coach Jeremiah Johnson. He went to a 3-5-2, and he inserted in energy up top in Tomas Mena. He inserted Alvaro Arce as a wingback, and he inserted Nick Kent as a central back defender to join Beaupre and Rigo. And at that moment, the only thing that would potentially work for St. Croix was catching Kent, Rigo, and Beaupre on the counterattack with maybe potentially a 2v3 and them getting the advantage out of the 2v3. That was the only way it was going to happen. What it did for City was it gave them another player up top that is active. And what it also did was it loaded the midfield, which, in my opinion, the midfield has been the strength for Minneapolis City Futures all summer. This game was the first game I had seen of theirs where the midfield was second best on the day. The Legends midfield, I thought was very, very good. But what they didn't try to do in the second half, when the goal started coming, the first goal being an own goal, and if you can hear me on the tape, every time we scored, I said thanks again for the free one, rather loudly because there was no one else there yelling. So I was that guy. Which further indicates that I need to be up in the booth so people can't hear me screaming at soccer games. But the activity came, an own goal came because of activity and numbers forward. And then you saw another set of tired defenders. They made all of their substitutions offensively, and I think they made one defensive sub, but it was a slower player that people like Campbell 2 and Aiden Lee, Alvaro Arce, Hermanson, Tomas Mena, all fast, active players, were able to just run right by. And on the second goal, Carter Hermanson had an individual effort where he just put his head down and, we had numbers in the box and he just didn't quit and the goalie didn't grab it and he just was able to poke it in. Now you're looking at 2-2, and all I saw and heard from the other side of the field from the Legends was they put center back Jack Barry up as a second striker to try to hit long balls for him to knock down. That's not how
that's it.
That was it. And then they made one more midfield sub with a player who I don't remember who it was, but wasn't very effective and active. So then the chances, the paradigm shifted where City was on the front foot, and the third goal came from Zach Susi, just picking out the fact that Alvaro was against a slower defender, and we had an opportunity. The ball popped out, and then Alvaro just kind of threw his foot at one and was able to dink it over the keeper. Now it's 3-2. Then now what does Jeremiah Johnson do? He brings his wing backs back, and now you have 6 or 7 in the back instead of 3. Yeah. And you have your center midfield. Joseph Swellen came in. He sat in front of the back 3. The writing was on the wall after that third goal. Throw as many long balls as you want. Nick Kent's going to eat them up.
Yeah,
and that's exactly
classic Kent.
Classic Kent. And yes, Jack Barry is a grown ass man, and we all love Jack Barry from his time with us. But Nick Kent is a grown-ass man now, and he was equal to the task. He won a ton of headers, cleared things out. He was good individually when he was pulled out wide. And I think that sub was what solidified. Obviously, the subs, Zach Susi had to come on for, I believe it was, forget who he subbed on for early because of injury. So Zach Susi was on for an extended period of time. First sub worked. Second sub, Alvaro. Third sub, Nick Kent. All 3 of those subs contributed to goals or shutting down shop. So, and that's what I mean. In my mind, that's coaching masterclass, and the Legends got out coached. We get the 3 points, take the top of the table.
It's a benefit too, John, of really knowing your players. When you think about how Jeremiah
100%.
comes to know his guys, right? Through the tryout process where you're looking at 100 guys or 200 guys. Anyway, 100 guys coming through there, we'll say, from all across the metro, whittled down to 50. So it is 200 whittled down to 50, right? And then they play in the Futures League. He gets to watch them play against each other, grow and develop over the course of the winter. You pick the cream of the crop going into the summer, and you know exactly what those guys are good at. They know how to play with each other. They know what to expect from each other, and you can make those changes. And it's a luxury that Carl Craig doesn't really have when you think about subs.
Yeah, totally agree. And I mean, like we've been making the case that Alvaro might warrant first team minutes outside back.
Yeah.
And you're bringing him on as a second half sub in the UPSL, like
right?
That's a luxury card game right there.
That's a strong team.
And you're bringing on Nick Kent, who arguably is, I know he's coming back from injury, but if he's healthy, he's your starting center back. Or he's at least fighting for it. And then you bring on Zach Susi, who you've had for 2 seasons. You know what he can do. He was playing in the center part of the park instead of out wide where we're typically used to seeing him. But you're right. The coaching staff for the Futures knows these guys, and man, it's such an advantage over these other teams that, in my opinion, are using their, like we talked about, some of them are using this as the second team. But for us, it is a second team, but it's a first team for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
And to have all of the chess pieces out there or sitting right next to you or behind you on the bench, it's just a matter of time of when you want to pull the trigger. And like I said, I thought the trigger was pulled the exact right time. Kill shot happened. Close up shop. We're on top of the table.
Word. This loss, John, for St. Croix followed up by a loss against Med City in the Minnesota Super Cup. I'm going to go on a limb here and say that any future match against St. Croix this season should be looked forward to for the reasons we just talked about. They're going to fight hard, but they might be running out of ideas, and they may be running out of personnel.
It happened to them last year where they got off to a fast start, got a few nice results, maybe not wins, but nice result. They got a nice result, almost a nice result against the Des Moines Menace. The Canadian teams came into town, and I think everything shifted then. And the second time through, everyone kind of figures out what they're doing. Yep. I did watch that Super Cup game, and they looked tired. They had no plan. Neither did Med City, to be honest with you. I know what you're getting out of a Neil Cassidy coach soccer team. I've seen it for like almost 7 years. I know how they play, and it was the same thing over and over again. And it was a whole bunch of Legends mistakes that lost them that game. And so is that going to be a running theme? Or are they going to start to drop down the table? And people who are starting to figure it out, like us, maybe the Bavarians, still haven't seen what the Canucks are going to bring down across the border. So we don't know. But you might see a free-for-all down the table for them. Or they have the pieces to put it together. Maybe it's different this season, but this is very much an indication of what happened last year.
Yeah. Well, the Future's winning ways, they finally ran out in a midweek tilt against the St. Paul Blackhawks. This Blackhawks team is one of the ones in our division that's sort of dancing around that top 5 spot, top 3, top 4 spot. They're really unable to break through due to inconsistency because they've had some nice results. Like they beat Superior City, who you and I have talked about, their kind of Duluth's backup team. But they've also like dropped points to Worthington. They lost to Austin Villa. Like this is not a team that can put it together week in and week out. So traveling, I mean, this was at Humboldt High, right? It's right up in St. Paul. So it's not really traveling, but we had we not really sure who that roster was because we didn't post it. But John,
I got it.
You got it. Okay, great.
I got it. Yeah. I did. I will admit I did not watch this game yet. I have it sitting in my inbox. I have not looked at it yet. But the roster was Antonio Oliveras, Aiden Lee, Bodine Gosted, Campbell 2, Carlos Robles, Carter Hermanson, Cole Britson, Griffin Price, Joe Swellen, Jordan Ross, Logan Allers, Michael Doshin, Mutu, Nick Karam, Nick Kent, Parker Flynn, Rigo, Sergio Hernandez, Tomas Mena, and Tyler Beaupre.
Nice. So we've got that core group of guys, and every once in a while they rotate in. Mena took a game off. Doshin took a game off, and you replace him on the bench. You replace him on the bench against St. Croix with some solid ass players, right?
Right, exactly.
And then they're back. I guess I shouldn't say Mena, but Doshin for sure did.
But as far as this game goes, like I said, I all second half accounts, very physical match. City was able to capitalize. Tomas Mena got on the score sheet again with what I was told a towering header. So we'll take that from the source. So, but then it was this real physical back and forth. I believe around the 70th-ish minute, the Blackhawks were able to capitalize and draw the game. And then it was just a dogfight, which ended with no blood, with 1-1, which still keeps the Crows in the UPSL undefeated and top of the table. A win there. I think the draw solidified that they would get a playoff spot, but it won't be the top one unless they continue to take care of business. So 3 points there would have been real nice. But on the road, we saw it with Valora on the road in shitty environments. Getting 1 point, it's fine. That's what you're supposed to do. Win at home and get points on the road, and they got 1 point. And they coming off the heels of disposing of the top team in a 3-2 comeback. I was worried about this game, but all indicators are that it was just well fought, and the good Blackhawks team showed up, which typically, as we know, Nate, when in these leagues, when we play teams on the road, certain names pop up on sheets that weren't there the last time they played against maybe someone further down the table. Yeah, so surprise. That was an indicator of this one as well. I thought the one stat though that was put out on social that was something to touch on, that so far this season, I'm looking at the standings, and Minneapolis City is the stingiest team, giving up only 6 goals. And of those 6 goals, 4 of them that were scored against them have come from players that were former Futures players. So you have Assem Ilyasad with Laura, Drew Pitzner with Granite City, Owen Johnson with the Legends, and Keba Janae with Blackhawks. So take those guys out of the equation. They've given up 2 goals this year.
Yeah. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah. So again, I mean, what they're looking at from a standings perspective is St. Croix continued their winning ways. Got back into the winning ways. They're 6-1-1. We're 6-2-0. Valora's at 5-2-1. Followed by Superior City at 5-1-2. Blackhawks at 4-1-3. And then it's just your Worthingtons, FC Minneapolis, Twin City FC, those guys, Granite City, Maplebrook, all the teams that we don't believe are on paper threatening for the top spot.
Yeah.
So you really look at what's left, and that's hang on a second, I'll pull it up real quick.
What's left for us?
What's left for us is the danger game, in my
Superior.
opinion, is Superior City away at our place. So they're coming to us, and then it's Maplebrook to finish out the season on the road in Maple Grove. So if there was ever a trap game, it's what Superior City FC team's going to come visit us. They look to, if I'm pulling them up, and we're getting a little deeper into things here. Where are they here? Results. They have they have won one away game, and that was against the Blackhawks. They have lost. They've only lost one home game, but they have drawn. They have won one game away, first game of the season. They've drawn in Austin. Everyone beats Granite City. Beat Granite City, and then they lost to Twin City FC at home, or on the road. On the road, excuse me. So doesn't look like a team that travels very well. So sitting where they sit right now in the table, have they given up, or do they want to beat Minneapolis City in the top spot?
I don't know. I mean, looking at the schedule too, John, in the NPSL, Duluth, if they really wanted to, if this really is Duluth's second team, they could probably flip the script and do okay because they're welcoming Eris to town on Saturday. So they could bench some of their more experienced, some of their better players and put them in on Sunday against us if they wanted to. So this is what we'll find out on Sunday. Do they really want to compete in the UPSL, or is it just kind of a bench warmer fitness organization for Duluth?
I'm not seeing a lot of names on the roster sheet here that indicate Duluth's going to be sending any of their firepower on this roster. Okay. I only recognize a handful of names that are on it that have a little crossover. So I think we're going to get what we're going to get, and we'll see. So that's coming up on June 11th next week, 7 p.m. at Augsburg, which could be potentially an opportunity to clinch the title, I believe. I mean, if we're looking at the standings, I don't want to keep belaboring this, but if we got it open, might as well. We're looking at St. Croix. St. Croix has they beat Valora on the 7th. Or did they beat Valora? What happened in that game yesterday?
I think Valora won.
No, it was 3-2.
They did beat them?
Yeah. Weird. And there was goals by a guy named Luca Contestable.
What?
Yeah.
For St. Croix?
Yeah, maybe Luca's playing with St. Croix. We'll look at the roster.
How is that possible? That's fucking wild.
Hold on a second. Is he on their roster? Yep, Luca's on their roster.
What?
Yep. Weird.
That is weird.
Man, they have 100 guys on their roster. Jesus Christ. Anyways, they go to what do they got here? They have Twin City FC on the 11th, and then they finish with FC Minneapolis. So if we win out, obviously we take the top spot, but we have to be mindful of not dropping any points. So still time.
There's still time.
the one we got to get over is next week. So that's June 11th, 7 p.m. at Edor Nelson Field against whatever is coming down from Superior.
Yeah, I guess we won't know. We won't know. Only $7 at the Nelly on Sunday. If you haven't got a futures game under your belt, this Sunday is your chance. That'll be great. Or if you remember, it's free, so just come on down. Paul is there. Paul's always there.
Yeah, Paul's there.
Yeah.
I was there.
That's going to do it for this week's show. Thanks again to our wonderful show sponsor, footballstadiumprints.com. Look, this lower league season is in full effect, and Football Stadium Prints has all the top gear for your lower league fandom, especially the stuff straight out of Minneapolis, whether that means T-shirts that feature John Bisworm or Matt Elder or Edor Nelson Field, maybe a mug, maybe a poster for your wall. I've got a really nice Edor Nelson Field poster that people comment on all the time in my conference calls right behind me. Don't forget to use that code CROWS10 for 10% off everything you purchase. And remember that all U.S. orders ship right from these here United States, so there's no international shipping charges. If you want, you still can get a 2023 membership. $89 is going to get you tickets to every remaining Minnesota Super Cup game, the UPSL games plus playoffs, the USL 2 home games, and of course a voice that's going to help shape our club for the entirety of the next year. There's only a few in-town memberships left. Don't wait too long. And as a reminder, Minneapolis City is a 501c3, so consider that charitable gift to a club that loves to give back. If you're interested in getting a hold of us, if you want us to talk about something in particular over the season, I think you said that Bryn or Paul had a question and we totally blew past it this week. So we'll have to remember that for next week.
Yep, sorry.
Hit up the club on Twitter at MPLS City SC, or hit us up at the show at The People's Pitch on Twitter, or via email mcscpodcast@gmail.com. And that's going to do it for tonight. I am Nate. That was John. Big week coming up in the UPSL season. We're going to be watching. We'll be back with you next week. But until then,
Huffed.
Huffed.